1. That hotfix is live for the Vainglory 8 as well. So we are going to be seeing, you know, the extra strength on the Baron, extra strength on the Scarf. Things like that are going to be very much things we have to focus on.
Yeah, indeed. Tension Bow got a slight buff too.
Yeah.
It was necessary because health counters Tension Bow. It's a traditional thing that you know, common knowledge. So it needed a buff. It got a buff. Black Feather gets banned. It's an extremely strong laner. I'm actually very surprised that no one is first picking it, or Calamity Reborn is not leaving it to be picked.
Yeah.
I think this is going to be very different once we go to North America.
Now, I want to talk a little bit about Celeste here, because typically Black Feather was like the Celeste counter, and Celeste was incredibly popular last patch. Does this ban open up a Celeste pick for Calamity, or is she fallen off completely?
It's not that she's fallen off completely. It's just that it's not as much of a priority by any stretch. Like Hamza was saying, a lot of the Crystal Mages have just sort of not been as prioritized right now because people are still trying to figure out what the optimal builds are going to be for each hero. It's not so much well, this hero just does a ton of damage, so they're the best one to pick now, because there's so much more utility that can be picked up with these items and the new items, the item reworks, things of that nature. Instead, we're going to be getting a Catherine, so it looks like Calamity could be running themselves a weapon lance here.
Yeah, it does seem like it. It's most likely going to be the weapon power lance, but it's possible at the same time Munchables. And typically when you see something like this, you say they're going to pick a mage carry in the lane so that they can have that hyper carry. CP Idris is still extremely strong. There is Scarf that still opens Celeste, so that's most likely what they're going to end up picking. On the side of Fnatic, though, they have quite a few different options. Churn Walker is still open. That's something we haven't seen being picked up so far, but they choose to go with Lyra instead. Lyra is actually stronger now because her sustain is health percentage, and as we said, health is now increased, so you get more from her sustain, and the team fights also last longer, so any sustain base hero generally is stronger in this update.
Yeah, another indirect buff that came on through with the patch, and it's going to be Vox to round out this composition. Vox definitely one of those carries that we see in just about every meta and can just about fit into most compositions.
Vox is also a little bit of a takeaway here from Calamity, because at Fel, that was one of his most played heroes historically, has been this Vox. So by Fnatic picking that up, it is still a very strong pick. The thing is, now they're going to be running that double weapon most likely. And so this allows both the Catherine and the Lance to just build a ton of armor. Even though the armor has been nerfed a bit, not as strong, not as effective, if you stack a whole bunch of it, you're still going to be reducing the damage that is able to be dealt on the side of Fnatic by a lot, especially because now the piercing items no longer stack. It's either Tension Bow or Bonesaw. You can build both of them, but you're not going to get the pierce from both of them.
Celeste is going to come through in the end, so I'm curious to see what the build path is going to be on that Celeste now that we're jumping on into the game. But double weapon coming out for the likes of Fnatic. What do we think of these compositions then, gentlemen? Starting with you, Zara.
I mean, Calamity have a very strong composition just because they have the Catherine on the front line as well as the Celeste on the back line. The only thing is the CP items are very different now, so I'm interested to see what Affle is going to choose to build. I think it's going to rely very heavily on what he builds to allow his team to succeed.
I really like what Fnatic has here, because with the double weapon, you're going to get a lot of armor built. Bonesaw is really effective right now, especially if you put that on a Vox or a Kroll. They're just going to shred through their opponent's armor and be able to deal a ton of damage. Their ability to get onto the back line is going to be pretty immense.
Yeah, and we could see a similar thing to what we saw back in Week 3, was the Kroll builds the Bonesaw, and so long as Vox is focusing on his targets, that's kind of a team-wide armor reduction. He doesn't have to then build the Pierce, so you can go much more aggressive in your build as well.
I actually hope that they do that. I want to see Vox not build the Bonesaw. I want to see him build Breaking Point, because Breaking Point is actually now even stronger than Bonesaw, just because you have less armor on heroes in general, so there's less armor to shred. So generally, a Breaking Point will do better than a Bonesaw. So as your main carry, which is the Vox, I hope to see that. And if they want to pick a piercing item, let it be on the Kroll.
I think we have to talk a little bit about this Calamity Reborn composition as well, because when I think of Calamity Reborn, I don't think of a protect the carry composition. Even though Leon is a big carry player, we usually see Aeon on things like Glaive, and obviously Glaive is likely not going to be picked in this meta right now. He's not been that strong recently, but you don't expect Aeon to play this kind of passive role. So definitely feels like they've changed styles coming in.
Yeah, I don't know how passive they're going to be with it. That's the key for them, is they can be very aggressive with this Lance. Lance still does a ton of damage, especially if you're building weapon power on him. It could just be that they want to focus on just trying to get onto this Vox and shut him down hard, but they do have to worry about keeping that Celeste safe, but they have a very strong protection.
They do have really strong protection. For Fnatic's side, they're going to have to play really aggressive throughout the mid game. They need to get ahead in order to be able to close out the game. They still have the portal to go on top of Celeste later on in teamfights and try to just burst her down. But getting ahead mid game is their key to being able to do that later on. Otherwise, they're going to be shut down very easily.
Yeah, I'm incredibly curious to see how this Celeste is going to be built as well by Apfel. Also, if it goes to Apfel, we've seen lane Lance back in week 3. There's potential that that switches around. I would expect the Celeste to go into lane realistically. What is the expectation of how things are going to be playing out? Or in fact, I believe the game is loading, so we are going to be jumping on into this one. Make sure to let us know who you think is going to take this one on Twitter using that hashtag Vainglory as ever. Let us know who you're supporting. Do you think Fnatic can make it to the top of the table? Do you think Calamity could pull out an upset on this one? Let us know at home who you are cheering for coming on into this game. But it's about time that we jump into our very first game of our second split of the Vainglory 8. No Churnwalker, unfortunately, but this is going to be our first game of update 2.9, so we should be just about ready to jump on into this one. It's Fnatic against Calamity Reborn as we pass it over to the casters.
Thank you very much, Munch, and I am here, joined by Xscoundrel. My name is Medic. I should probably introduce myself first. It's been a while since I've done one of these, but Xscoundrel, I want to jump straight on into the action. I want to talk a lot about these compositions and about exactly how they're going to play off against each other.
Well, I just wanted to take a moment to say welcome back to Vainglory, Medic. I know you've been having fun gallivanting off around the world, but it's nice that you remember us, mate. Nice that you remember us in the defense.
How could I ever forget someone like you?
I think that's also very difficult. Anyway, like you said, let's move back onto the game. You've had your moment in the spotlight, my friend, and we'll get on through this. So, Fnatic running a composition that I think is pretty standard, but I think 9.1 Cruel still remains very strong. And with the changes to Tension Bow, both Vox and Cruel can make good use of Tension Bow and still get value out of a double weapon power composition. So Fnatic just running a safe composition in my eyes, although, ooh, Aeon misses there.
Yeah, Impale not hitting there from Aeon. Should have known that Ghost was going to get the stun with Merciless Pursuit, and Netwillet does get out. We did see the Elder Treant go over to Fnatic early on, with Calamity not really being able to get anything out of Fnatic's early push forward in the jungle.
Yeah, that's a rotation that you'll see more and more, especially against heavy dueling compositions like the... Wait, whoa.
I think we're okay. I think Apfel's going to be able to get out of this one safely.
It was close. It was close. I was worried for Apfel for just a moment. Fnatic looking to be aggressive as possible, but that's a common rotation, especially given that it's a Cruel early on, and against that amount of CC that both Ghost and Aeon bring to the table, you don't really want to be dueling as a Cruel early on. So they noticed they went from inside to out to make sure they didn't have to face a jungle duel where they felt that they were probably going to lose early on. So it's a sensible and safe rotation for Fnatic, and you can see they've actually been rewarded for it. They've been taking the better of these lane trades.
They're very effective in these lane trades. Netwillet doing a lot of work onto Apfel, onto Ghost. Apfel's already had to pop that healing of Flask and is actually looking to go back to Fountain as TechnoJJ and Netwillet continue to put the pressure on in this lane.
It's interesting, they were talking about Celeste's builds, and obviously with Frostburn not being a great item right now, people are sort of altering Celeste's build, but while Frostburn obviously is a really key item for Celeste in terms of landing good supernovas, another part of Celeste's common item build got better. Clockwork actually received a pretty decent buff in its overall structure in terms of what it provides. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the core of the Celeste build, the Eve of Harvest, the Clockwork, and maybe a Dragon's Eye or a Shatterglass to stay the same. And then we're going to see potentially where he goes, because Frostburn still has its utility. There's no internal cooldown on the 1 second slow. So as long as you're landing ability, you're still going to get the utility out of Frostburn. So we'll see where Apfel decides to go. But I imagine Eve of Harvest, Clockwork, and Shatter or Dragon's Eye will make the core part of this CP Celeste.
But in case people don't know, the changes to Clockwork is that when you hit an enemy with an ability, it reduces all of your cooldowns by 7.5 seconds, which is a monumental change, in all honesty, and can definitely help quite a lot with Celeste when you want to get those extra cooldowns out. You want to get more Helios down, especially when you're looking for these skirmish-based fights.
Yeah, well, with Clockwork, Helio's on about a 1.5 second cooldown anyway, so if you're reducing that by even further, my goodness, you'll have a very quick one. But it's very good for things like Core Collapse, which obviously is a great way to peel against a Cruel, and very good at shutting down engages through a Lyra portal, so obviously you want those off cooldown as quickly as possible. So yeah, and looks like Apfel, well, before update 2.9, we would have known what that meant. Wait a second, Palmator is looking to go aggressive here.
Yeah, Aeon's getting chased out, as is Ghost. Impale comes back onto Net Toilet, but Palmator just wants to get this heavy harass down with the Krull early on. Has gone for a early reflex block as well, knowing that he can get caught up by the Catherine and by this Lance and by the Core Collapse as well from Apfel.
Yeah, previous to update 2.9, we would have said Apfel with a heavy prism and an Eclipse prism in inventory.
Everything builds out of that Excounge.
Exactly. Previous to update 2.9, it's like, oh, it's Frostburn or Shatterglass, most likely Frostburn. Now it's like anything. I wouldn't be surprised to see it be a Dragon's Eye or a Shatterglass to begin with. Shatterglass still remains in the meta as a very standard item build if you're not looking for elongated fights, if you're looking for the straight up burst, which in a lot of ways Celeste is. Shatterglass still remains a pretty solid item, and he is going to complete that on now having the Shatterglass as his first item here. So,
and we are starting to see first items hit across the rest of the board as well. It's fine. Aeon has a tension bow to start himself off. There's a fountain for Ghost. If you look on the other side, it's a little bit more bitty. We're not seeing a completed item from Techno or Palmatoro. Net Toilet has gone towards the Crucible first up, and we're going to see a fight erupt in the lane as well. Here comes the Impale back in from Aeon. Palmatoro is so low, the Crucible comes out trying to heal him up, and he will be able to run away, but the final auto is chasing him down. The stun right back. There's the fountain. Too late. First blood goes over to Fnatic, and they're going to continue to pressure Apfel and Aeon out of this lane.
This is actually a build that FlashX was essentially trying to popularize and has had good success with. Palmator is not done yet.
Apfel does get back underneath his turret. The damage coming out, the Mortal Wounds, the wait for it as well. The snare's going to hit on towards Aeon. He can try and turn this one back around. One of the benefits of Lance is you're not gated by that energy. You can just use your spells on cooldown, use those abilities as often as you like, and try and continue in these elongated skirmishes.
Yeah, as long as you have the stamina to do so, you're in a good position. Aeon here, Tension Bow, and it's something we didn't touch on, by the way. We talked so much about Cruel benefiting from Tension Bow right now. We talked so much about Techno JJ potentially fitting a Tension Bow into his build, but you know, a guy who pretty much relies on this item for his weapon power build path, and with it just getting buffed in update 2.9.1, weapon power Lance Jungle is suddenly getting a bit better again. And obviously with the Tension Bow buffs, as Iraqi Zara was explaining, everybody's base health got increased in update 2.9, and the flat damage from Tension Bow did not. So strictly, Tension Bow got a hell of a lot worse in update 2.9. So they've buffed the flat Tension Bow damage by 33%, which now makes it very, very good in the early game again. It doesn't scale quite as well as it used to. There was a point in 2.8 where Tension Bow scaled until the late game, but doesn't quite scale as good as it used to, but it's still a very, very valuable item. But interestingly enough, we talked about Tension Bow on the other carries. Doesn't look like they're going it at all. It's going to be a breaking point first for Palmatoro, and Techno JJ maybe working towards a Sora Blade or a breaking point of his own after that poison shift.
Picked up that poison shift to start himself off, and we're not seeing that mid-game spike that perhaps we expected from Fnatic. Aeon's going to jump in, misses, but the Crucible was used from Net Toilet. And with us coming 7 minutes into this game and it being so even, Excoundrel, I want to talk a little bit more about win conditions. Because on the desk they were saying, yeah, Fnatic had this spike in the mid-game. They really want to harass in the mid-game. Are we seeing Fnatic being held at bay a little bit here by Calamity?
A little bit, but I think you really have to wait for that breaking point to come online. When Palmatoro hits breaking point on this Cruel, that's when they're going to start to open up. Realistically, when you get Cruel on level 6, you essentially want to use that ultimate on cooldown, a little bit like you would anything for that reason, like a Koshka ultimate, for instance. You basically want to use that ultimate on cooldown, get into lane, consistently apply pressure to Apfel. What Calamity have been doing really well is basically coordinating their team around Apfel. Aeon and Ghost are body blocking like no other, and obviously trying to keep Apfel as safe as possible. His farm is very even with Techno JJ. This is a really good position for the Celeste to be in right now. So Fnatic do need to start to turn up the heat just a little bit, especially since they've hit two pretty big breaking points, literally, with Techno JJ finishing his and Palmatoro not being too far off his own.
So how do you turn up that heat? How do you actually, put that oven on, get it preheated, get it firing on all cylinders if you're Fnatic? Because at the moment it feels like Calamity are very willing just to play the push the lane game, try and get some vision down, and then back off when Fnatic push forward.
Yeah, you need to find an opening. You need to get Cruel into that top rush, maybe unnoticed. Look to pull the trigger on Apfel. If you can get a burst onto Apfel, because he doesn't have a reflex block right now, and there's no Crucible for Ghost. So realistically, if you land the Cruel ultimate, it's going to get a stun regardless. You need to find that opening, burst Apfel, and then the wave clear from Ghost and Eon is so poor that you should be able to open up the map by going for that first turret. At the moment, Apfel is just clearing waves like no other. He's got the energy regen of Eve of Harvest, he's got the burst from the Shatterglass. He is very happy to just push waves back consistently against Fnatic. They need to be looking to find that opening and get that ultimate onto Apfel, but Ghost and Eon are doing such a great job of just standing in the front.
Getting more back on towards Palmatoro. The stun comes out as well, but they don't want to chase any further. There was an opportunity there where Palmatoro had snuck behind and Aeon had gone to farm his back camps, but Palmatoro was unable to connect with the From Hell's Heart, and now we'll just try and take away some of the jungle of Calamity, but still basically no gold between these two teams and no opening for Fnatic as of yet.
The problem for Fnatic is that they want to force Gold9. Naturally, you want to bring Calamity to you to force a team fight. But the way that this lane is shaping up, because Apfel is shoving in so consistently, if Fnatic go for Gold9, all that Apfel and Ghost are going to do is push the lane and take the first turret and get the same kind of gold in return almost. So Fnatic in a very awkward position. Eon also isn't very tanky, by the way, Medic. So if you look at him, he could also be a pretty decent target to try and burst down. No reflex block, only a small piece of light armor to guide his way in terms of defense. He could be a target. Don't feel so picky that you need to focus the Celeste. As long as you're not hitting Ghost, then Eon or Apfel, both of which, you know, you can force it 2 versus 3 just by picking off one of them, that's going to give you an opportunity to push this turret down. But right now, I mean, Calamity are holding back so well, and they're going to get towards that late game as quickly as possible. Broken Myth is coming in for Apfel, a very strong item. The more items you have for these hyper-scaling carries, and this is looking pretty good for Calamity.
Have to see if Fnatic are able to find that fight that they want. At the moment, Calamity holding them at bay well. And Aeon will jump forward with the Impale. Doesn't quite connect onto Net Toilette, who has got the Crucible and the Fountain completed. We did see Ghost actually going no Crucible of his own, instead going towards that Atlas Pauldron as his second completed item. Techno JJ is the target as Ghost goes in. Aeon there as well. Good stun, but Techno gets healed up. Here comes the From Hell's Heart, looking for the connection, will land, but it's only onto Ghost, and that's not the target you want. Here's the wait for it as Fnatic try and turn the fight around. Mortal Wounds on towards Ghost is not going to do too much as they are able to get away back underneath their tower once again.
And Poison Shiv and Lyra heals are going to give them the siege potential. Eon, Ghost, they don't really have the sustain. The only sustain is coming through from that Eve of Harvest right now, but the wave clear is just so good, and Fnatic don't have an opening without that Cruel ultimate. You mentioned the Atlas Pauldron. It really shuts down a Cruel build that goes into a breaking point early on. He hasn't actually finished the breaking point, by the way, and has gone towards a piercing spear. I'm wondering, because he's seen the Atlas Pauldrons, whether he just goes for a tension bow, but he has not finished a tier 3 item in terms of offense. And he is very, very far behind the curve in terms of having that tier 3 item on board, so I'm slightly worried for Palmatoro's damage output. He did manage to get the Crystal Sentry though, so that's not a bad situation.
Was caught off slightly on the wrong side of the house to unfold there, but using a good reflex block gets himself away from Aeon. Here comes the engage from Ghost, the snare with the Bright Bulwark. He will keep himself alive for the time being. Knocked back, double block there though on the Blast Tremor, and actually Fnatic will be able to win out this fight for the time being. So the Solar Storm used from Apfel off towards the side. That's not really the direction you want it in.
I think he was looking to catch Palmatoro, who might have been trying to dodge an Impale and trying to find a flank play potentially. Bit of miscommunication you feel between Fnatic. Palmatoro at the end of the silence used both his healing flask and then also Net Toilette used the fountain. It was a bit of an unnecessary fountain. Had Palmatoro just shouted, "I'm going to use my healing flask, I'm going to be okay." Because Cruel has got so much inbuilt sustain into his kit, he could have just walked back into the jungle and generated that health back up. But right now the gold is even Stevens, 200, 300 gold in it between these two. And still, Fnatic are yet to crack this opening first turret. And the longer and longer this goes, the more and more powerful Apfel is going to become on this Celeste. He's a very accomplished Celeste player as well. There's the Bonesaw, by the way. We've been gazumped. Palmatoro immediately getting the piercing down to make this double weapon power composition feel a little bit more useful.
And it's what Iraki's always said on the desk. He wants it on the Cruel, doesn't think you need it on Techno JJ. He's looking more to build up those breaking point stacks. So we need to keep a track of those in this next fight, because that's really where Fnatic are able to win out these battles. Still unable to take that first turret though, and they continue just to be pushed back by Calamity, who are not giving up this game without a fight.
Cruel, as you can see, I do like what Fnatic are doing here, but again, they might get caught up by the wave shove coming in from the rest of Calamity Reborn. Fnatic don't need to commit everybody to the gold miner now. Palmatoro should be in his own right able to do it, but look at this.
So many stuns onto Techno JJ, but still he just dodges away. The Solar Storm is not enough, and here comes Palmatoro chasing all the way onto Apfel. He needs to get the stun down, can't quite connect, but Apfel keeps running underneath his turret and gets away. The stun from Ghost is absolutely superb onto the Krull. Another great block on towards the Blast Tremor will get Fnatic out alive, but once again, their plans are gazumped by Calamity. And that's perhaps how they're feeling a little bit now as well. Exasperated that they keep going for these engages and keep not getting the connections they want.
The chain CC from Calamity is just so insane as well. It's why Reflex Blocks, Aegises, and Crucibles were all prioritized by Fnatic early on, because if you get caught by one stun, you're likely to get caught by every single stun that the Calamity Reborn team have to offer. Ghost is trying to protect this turret as best he can. Not much of a minion wave to work with for Fnatic, and again, we're at the point where they are weathering the storm. However, the inclusion of this Bonesaw now, Medic, it means that the front line becomes that much less of a front line for Calamity. Suddenly, you have the 18% pierce that the Bonesaw provides you naturally, and you're going to build those stacks onto that single target. And Palmatoro and Techno JJ are likely, for the most part, going to be focusing that same target, so they're going to make maximum use out of those Bonesaw stacks. And here we go, Techno JJ varying up the builds, by the way, Sona. He's gone for Medic. He's gone for the Tyrant's Monocle.
That he has, wants the extra crit chance, but I wonder about this Bonesaw as well, Excalibur, because the only person with, well, actually now Aeon has finished his own Atlas, so I was going to say the only person with armor was Ghost, but now Aeon with an Atlas of his own means that you can shred through that armor a little bit more. We do see the Kraken spawn onto the Halcyon Fold, and with no gold miners taken throughout the entirety of this game thus far, it's an environmentally friendly game. The World Wildlife Federation would be very happy with how things have gone. Endangered species being saved across the Halcyon Fold.
Absolutely, Medic, absolutely. And you can see Apfel now working towards his 4th CP item. I'm wondering what that is going to be. Maybe it's not going to be a clockwork because he's gone for the heavy prism. Apfel nearly caught out, but
a good stun there. Palmatoro just all by himself, weren't able to collapse with the rest of Fnatic, and just it's that miscoordination, it's that anti-synergy that we're seeing a little bit here from Fnatic that you talked about, Excalibur. They just don't quite seem to be on the same page at the moment.
Something that we've seen from Palmatoro quite a lot as well is that he often is a little bit disconnected from the rest of the team. He often makes decisions that the rest of the team aren't quite on the page with. And it's something that we have kind of criticized Fnatic for, even in their international performances at the Unified Western Live Championships. So we'll see that they seem to be a little bit more reserved in their play this time. Palmatoro is effectively kept on some sort of metaphorical leash here. He's kind of been reined in by the rest of his team and is making slightly less risky plays than we used to. He's actually picked up an extra reflex block as well, Medic, and this is the update where the fix has happened for reflex block. It doesn't share the same cooldown as Aegis now, and I'm wondering whether he's going to work that towards the Crucible for the rest of the team.
Ghost goes in, there's the Impel, but Techno JJ is going to block that one out. Ghost will take some damage in return, but Apfel can just stand on that front line. He knows the cooldowns have been used and can push down those Helios as much as possible. I think the problem is really here for Fnatic that they are in a position in the group after Split 1 that they need to win every week, really, to be able to catch up with SK and get that world spot. And when you see this little bit of indecision, when you see this little bit of hesitancy, when they have a composition that comes online at a certain point and they're not using it properly, you worry for their chances to get to that world.
They just haven't been able to execute on their strategy properly, and now you're at the point where it's a 4-item CP select. She's got Dragon's Eye, for God's sake, on top of the Shatterglass. Those supernovas in elongated fights are going to hit like trucks, flaming star-shaped trucks from the sky, and you are seriously not going to last very long unless you're locking her down instantaneously. So, yeah, I think you're right. They had an opportunity to capitalize, and they just haven't been able to do that, and it's been a slow, awkward affair. This has been a game of Vainglory and 15 minutes with just 1 kill. I can't remember the last time I've seen that, Medic. I don't think I've ever cast a game of Vainglory where it's been this reserved and this, I think, slow-paced.
I think when we used to cast, like last year, EU was known as the much slower meta, so perhaps I brought a little bit of a curse back with me, and the teams just want to play it out as slowly as possible. As you say, Apfel has finished the Dragon's Eye. Just for any viewers who haven't seen the 2.9.1 updates, Dragon's Eye gets 20 extra crystal power for each second you're damaging enemy heroes. After 2.5 seconds of not damaging enemy heroes, you lose all of those stacks, and it stacks up to 9 times. So you can get up to 180 extra crystal power out of that one item if you're continually landing those supernovas and those helios on towards the Fnatic enemy.
You can see now the range of Celeste post level 8 with that Dragon's Eye in tow really starting to punish Fnatic here. They don't have the opportunity to engage the first turret. That was 732 damage. Obviously the resistances of turrets have been lowered, by the way, which is why you get that excessive CP damage on them now as well. But Fnatic, you know, they are just healing to save themselves. They're not even finding opportunities to open up the fight. And even if they did, they've got to get through all of that CC and peel that the Catherine and the Lance provide, the Gittian Wolves, the stuns, the silences. Really need that second Crucible, you feel, from Palmatoro, but he's working towards what appears to be a Sorrow Blade, just for a little bit extra burst onto Atma.
JJ looking for crits as well as he goes double Tyrant's Monocle in his build. Palmatoro goes for the engage. There's the wait for it as well. Good damage here on that front line. Already we see the Lance go down and Aeon has fallen. Here's Palmatoro straight onto Ghost with the From Hell's Heart. Looking for another kill, but the death on the back line as well as Netrolet will fall. The turret goes down. Techno JJ in that front line trying to dodge away from Ghost, and here comes Palmatoro once again, and they will accept the tower and kill trade underneath that first turret for Calamity.
And whilst that was a successful attempt at a siege from Fnatic, you have to worry that Apfel was A, untouched, and B, dealing incredible amounts of damage from the backline. That's only sort of spells ill omens for Fnatic as this game goes on, and they're going to lose their first tier turret in return of that. So realistically, it's actually ended up being an even trade. You don't get any benefit for taking the first turret of the game. As long as they're able to respond, you're going to even up that gold score. Bracken has been untouched and unfazed because we are 20 minutes and the first turrets have only just gone down. I bet North America are looking at this game saying, goodness me, what is this? Like, first turret's not going down for 20 minutes? This is very much, I think you've brought that curse back in full effect, Medic.
Yeah,
this is very much that slow-paced, careful Europe that we were used to seeing last year. And just feel that it's favoring Calamity the longer and longer we go.
Passage in as Palmatoro looks for the stun, will land onto Ghost, but the rest of the team are chasing all the way down. Techno JJ in that front line with the wait for it as well onto Apfel. Looking for a flank here. Ghost pops down the blast tremor, the stun onto Palmatoro. He's knocked into the wall. Ghost with a stun off towards the side as well, and now Fnatic are on the back foot as Calamity look to try and chase it down, but they don't have the boots. They don't have the chase potential at the moment. Fnatic will be able to heal up with that Imperial Sigil.
Oh, you feel for Fnatic, they're trying to make the right moves, but if you just cannot lock down Apfel, especially now that he's got that metal jacket, he's gonna just kite you away so easily. He's got the Halcyon charges for the bit of cooldown reduction in there, not including the clockwork in his build. And you see they have to, if they don't immediately get Apfel down, they retreat out of the fight, and that's where a Celeste starts to shine, no pun intended. She's able to chase you down with those heliogenesis, and not quite all cylinders firing at the same time for Fnatic, and Palmatoro admittedly landing his boomerang on somebody, but didn't quite land it on the target. I mean, there is credit to saying keeping Ghost out of the fight allows you to more effectively keep your pressure onto Apfel, but there we go again.
Netrolet gets onto the backline. They're trying to get onto Apfel here. That From Hell's Heart will connect, and the wait for it coming out as well. The silence, but Apfel somehow still alive as he runs out towards the back of this fight. Aeon's gone low as well. That's a hero kill. Double Bone Saw working wonders here for Fnatic as they continue to chase onto Apfel. Techno JJ with the flank. The Blast Tremor comes out, and here's the Crystal Sentry trying to help out Calamity, but it's too little, too late. A double kill for Fnatic. Ghost is going to fall as well as he gets chased out towards the bottom.
Wow.
Fnatic get the ace, and off that perhaps they can take the Kraken and break the base of Calamity.
Oh my goodness, absolutely nothing for 22 minutes. One attempted engage by Fnatic that went a little wrong, and suddenly they are back at it. I think that was the right game plan. That is the only way you have to circumvent the Githian Wall, the Impale, the stun, everything like that. Let's take a look at the replay. Everything is focused on getting that portal past that front line. The stun lands, no reflex block. It was point blank onto Apfel, which is very difficult to block, especially if you're trying to block it through a Crucible use coming from Catherine. And from that point forwards, the speed up boosts and the block of the silence as well, and keeping Palmatoro stuck to Apfel was massively, massively impactful. That's exactly how Fnatic needs to play. They're getting the massive healing coming out from Lyra as well now, giving them the longevity in fights, putting Apfel on the back foot. Incredible play from Fnatic.
And just before that fight as well, they switched out the Poison Shiv on Techno JJ for a second Bonesaw, helping them shred through that armor, helping them shred through that front line a little bit more, and helping Fnatic take the win in the fight. Now they're looking to break the base as they try and get this choke point turret down, but the Crystal Sentry's helping out Calamity just a little bit as they will use that fourth man. Ghost goes in for the stun. Kraken's still there at about half HP, and the turret's gone down to about half itself. Fnatic at the cusp of winning this game, you feel, and then we'll be able to crack the base of Calamity. Netwiller actually looking for the engage as he gets onto the back of Apple. Pamator's there as well. The rest of Fnatic join the fight through the arcane passage, but they can't quite get on towards Apple, who is able to escape back towards his base.
Yeah, they Kraken too low. I think they were just trying to force Calamity back off the Kraken, maybe giving him an opportunity to push into the base and find an opening, but alas, that's not a bad push with Kraken. You've opened up that Calamity base. Now there's more space for you to work with. I think there's just one Crystal Sentry life remaining. Might even be 0. I can't remember if it's been eliminated completely. Now Pamator is looking for a flank. The vision isn't quite there for Calamity. And you can see Calamity are playing very awkwardly, very safe, trying to protect themselves as much as possible, keep Apfel behind that padding, bubble wrap padding. Whoa, wait a second.
They're going to engage onto Apfel. He's been caught out, the rest of the team there, but good give you more knocks in 2. Here's Palmatora as well, trying to get on towards that Celeste. The Solar Storm does a lot of work. The slow, can they keep Apfel alive? They can't, and this will be the end. You have to feel for Calamity. They are running for the hills because Fnatic are on the chase, and this pack of wolves do not take any prisoners. Another kill as the Catherine falls, and Fnatic, with 3 members strong, can look to win the game and take down the Crystal.
Yeah, they're going to have plenty of sustain with the Lyra. Aeon's damage well off the charts now. Huge healing coming out from Lyra. Medic, I think they might struggle here. They might struggle. Aeon might be going for a hero play.
Netwiller's already dead, but the Spectral Smite will take down that final turret, and now Aeon has to try and balance between taking out Techno or taking out Palmatora, and he just can't do enough. Fnatic take game 1 of the best of 3.
The double Bonesaw pickup, like you mentioned, Medic, made it so much easier for Techno JJ. They didn't have to coordinate as much. It meant that Techno JJ could get to Palmatora could get to the back line and pressure Apfel, and whilst Techno JJ was able to then shred the armor on the front line of Aeon and Ghost and work his way to that back line if he had the opportunity to do so. It made it a lot more flexible. It made the armor almost feel useless on Calamity. And finally, Fnatic found the way to push through using those portals to circumnavigate all of that peeling that Calamity brought to the table. And finally, found the opening to take out Apfel, who, by the way, didn't go for a clockwork, didn't have that ability to just get those core collapses off more and more quickly. Interesting build that you'd go for both Shatterglass and Dragon's Eye, in my opinion. But regardless, Fnatic take the win.
That they do, and we're going to hand it over to Munch and the guys on the analyst desk to break